So we are on Unit 2 still, which is percents, and we are still on learning target number 3. And if you look at learning target number 3, it's the equation one, right? Setting up and solving an equation, okay? So everybody get a piece of paper out. Eric, we're waiting on you. Jacob, waiting on you. Somebody have a piece of paper that Eric can borrow? I do. Okay, thank you. So Unit 2, Learning Target 3, we're going to call this Part 2. Because we already did this. We already took some notes on the equation. Remember? It was the colorful ones. It was the slide sheet of... So thank you, Roger. All right. You have something to write with? Good. So here's what I want you to understand right now. I have a chart here, and it's got 4 columns, which means we've kind of learned 4 different things. All right? Problem. The problem usually looks like this, doesn't it? Right? The problem is worded in that sentence. So please just try to follow me today, guys. I know you'll get it. What is 85% of 17? 4 is what percent of 27, right? Okay? That's the problem. Then we learned the, estimation, but let's do this next. Then we learned how to solve it with a proportion, right? Next, we learned how to solve it with an equation. And for both of these, we were given what kind of problems? Word problems. So do you see all these word problems? So I got something fun planned this week to maybe later match all these up. So like, what one of these would match with which equation, would match with which this, do you see what I mean about all this? So there's 4 different ways to represent the same thing. The sentence, the proportion, the equation, and the actual story that goes with it. So if you can keep that straight in your head, then we'll be fine with that. So just know that something like that is coming up soon. So we're going to start by talking about, because going to a word problem, or like let's start with this word problem. So you are writing this down. There are 150 students in Seats band, right? Okay, I know that's more, but we're just going to go with that. There are 150 students in Seats band, and I'm going to say that 45 of them are in the 6th grade. Now, stop right there. Because now is when I can be devious and try to give you a question that you think I'm going to ask you, but I ask you the opposite of it. Right? Some of you have been duped by this before. Like if I say, hey, this is the percentage of females, how many males are in the class, right? And it got a few of you. Remember me, this is me asking you to be better detectives and really read through what I'm asking you. So you may think right now that I might say what? Oh, so what percentage of the band is 6th graders? And in this case, I actually will. But I could say, what percentage of the band are not 6th graders? Because technically, I don't know if they're in 7th or 8th. I could just say what aren't, right? So, there are 150 students at Seats. 45 of them are 6th graders. My question, I'll be nice this time. What percent of the band are in 6th grade? Okay, go ahead and finish that. Now, here's the deal with this, though. You're like, why are we doing this again? We've done this. Because I'm asking you to write an equation from this. Well, let's stop a second. The easiest thing to do is to write the proportion probably from here, correct? Do you agree with that? Because guess what, guys? What do you need to write the equation? You need this. Yep. You need to translate, right? So you need this sentence for you to be able to translate. But, anybody think they can come up with that sentence from Looking at that right there? And guess what? Not a lot can. So I'm going to give you a shortcut. So are you ready? I want you to, if you have a different color, go ahead. Draw a little arrow down. So step 1 is start with the story problem. We're going to do a little flow chart. You know what that means? This works on this, works on this. So what I would say would probably be the easiest thing to do next is this. Because you guys did really well at that. I checked the tests. I got third hours done. I have to hand yours back. But I think probably 90% of the class had an A or a B. Yeah, like really, really well. So, tomorrow. So, take a look at this one right here. What percent means what? What goes here? Do I know? No. Do you remember that I said this is the of, this is the is? Of is your total. Is your part of it. So, what goes here? There are 150 total, and 45 of them, yes, are 6th grade. Okay, so then do you remember that question on the last test, the estimating that I gave you? And I asked you to tell me what that sentence started out as. If you had to write one of these, what would you write that made you write that? Think about it. I'll give you one. Here, I'll give you one of these. Ready? Here, this one would be what percent. Watch my finger. You know what? What I'm going to do with this or my pen, I'm going to point as I say it. What percent of 18 is 7? Did you follow that? What percent of 68 is 19? How about this one? This time I know the percent. So this time I say 7% of 41 is what number? Right? Yes? What would this one be? Oops. 6%. Roger, go ahead.
Oh, this one?
Yeah.
6% is 6% of what number?
Yes. Good. Did you hear that? Is and of, right? 6% of what number turns out to be 2? Okay, so didn't I say my goal was to turn it into a sentence so that I can turn it into an equation? So it's like, do you ever have to like go somewhere, but sometimes like you run errands with mom, dad, grandma, or whatever, and all you have to do is you want them to drop off at your friend's house. But they have to stop at the post office. Then they have to go here. And then they have to go there. So they make like 3 stops. And then you finally get to what you're... That's kind of what we're doing here. We got to make a couple stops. Do I want to solve this right now? No. I want to use this to turn it into a sentence. So what sentence would this be? Yes, Roger.
What percent of 150 is 45?
Yes. Of 150 is 45. Okay, do you see that? Do you see the flow here? I started with this. All I want to do is write a stinking equation, but I can't really do that unless I have the sentence. And I needed to write the proportion to get the sentence. You following me? And finally, when I have my sentence, I can what? Write that equation and then solve it, right? Okay, what percent means what? P. Of means times. 150 means, write 150. Is means equals. 45, so I need all eyes on the overhead. Everybody, not wandering around, not looking around at the posters, that's great, but I really want you looking at this right now. So, let me just kind of show you. P, of 150 is 45. Remember we did that? But does anybody not like how that looks? I could do what with it? Yes, make it 150p equals 45. And I am so close. All I have to do now, I am one step away from getting to my friend's house, getting the answer that I needed. Yeah. Yes. Why do I divide by 150? Because that's what I want to cancel out, right? So now, be very careful because when I enter this, what's going to pop up? That. And that's what? 30%. 30% of what? Oh my gosh, let's go back to what I even asked you. 30% of? 30% of the band are sixth graders. Because 45 out of 150 is that. Did you see that? Okay, I'm going to show you one more example, and I'm going to help you be detectives. Yes?
If we get like a question like kind of similar to that on a test, if we because since to find 10%, you just move the decimal, and then it'd be 15. And
Hey, guess what? At some point,
45,
yeah.
it would be 30%. Can you just put that instead?
Yeah, so Roger said, you know what? I know that 10% is 15. So he's using, and here's what's so beautiful about what he just said. There are all kinds of ways to get your answer. You can estimate it if it's a nice even one. You can solve your proportion. I'm giving you 3 ways to get your answer now. And the awesome part about this is, if you ever have a percent problem after these tests in September of next year, in May of this year, you solve it however you want. Okay? Do you understand? My job is to make sure you just know how to do all 3 of them. Okay? But after the check for understandings, you are on your own. You can do it however you want. Okay. This is like, I've been watching this show, like Quantico. I don't know if anybody, it's like all about FBI training. So remember how I'm always telling you be like detectives and look at these problems? So I'm going to give you some strategies. We're going to do some secret training here. So I'm going to give you 2 different options. Actually, let's do this. I earn, are you ready? And I heard some light bulb. You know what the best sound a teacher can hear is? Yes, that's exactly it. Oh, and it's always like that, isn't it? It's always like, oh, and it gets higher. I don't know why, but I've been hearing it for like 17 years. And when I hear that sound, you know what that means? They get it. They finally get it. And I heard that a lot. 3rd hour today. So I'm hoping that I hear a lot also, and that it's not fake. I earned $45 for babysitting. Okay. I brought my little sister along with me. She was only 8, so I let her pretend like she was fancy and babysat. I promised her 15% of what we made. Woo, not dollars, percent. I promised her 15%. Now my question is, how much did I keep? That's what I mean you have to be a detective for, because a lot of times people just look at the problem, they don't really read it all, they find 15% of 45 and they put the answer and they go, next question, and then they're wrong, right? Okay? So, I'm going to have you draw 2 lines down your paper, make 2 columns, because I'm going to show you that in math you always have options, right? So, option number 1. And then option number 2. Because I am sick of you guys getting tricked. I want to promote you and make sure you know how to solve these really well. Well, let's do this. In order to get to that equation, I like to start out with a proportion. Anybody else with me on that? It's kind of, yeah, proportions are pretty good. It's like they have a certain spot and they go in those spots every time. Okay, do I know the percent I promised her? I promised her 15%, which is written as 15 over 100, right? Do I know how much I made? Yes, that's the total. That's the of. Exactly. But I don't know what that dollar amount ends up being. Okay? Let's just see this problem through before we do option 2. So, what sentence would this create? This would create what sentence, Alyssa T? Yep, awesome. You guys are getting it. See how, watch where I'm pointing to. 15% of 45 is what number? Great. So 15% of 45 is what number? And once we have the equation, we can do what with it? Or I'm sorry, not the equation. Once we have the sentence, I gave you the answer, Nikolai. Yeah, well, yep, you got it. Yep, we use the proportion to make the sentence. It's kind of like the old lady that lived in a shoe, right? Or that lived or swallowed a fly. I use the words to make the proportion, to make the sentence, to make the, right? You keep going and going, and you're like, stop. At least I didn't sing it. So, let's make this into our equation. 15% is that. Of means little x. 45 is means what means a. Or what number? You know, you could use n, you could use whatever. I just wouldn't recommend using x. And I would use p if it's solving for percent, right? All right, this is one of those easy ones. Don't confuse yourself. What's it telling you to do? Do you multiply or do you divide? You multiply, because that's a big old multiplication symbol. 0.15 times, yeah, it's small, times 45 is what? Okay, so let's stop for a second, because some of you who do not have the detective gene in you, who do not read what it's asking you, might look, and you might put 675 as my answer. And you failed your mission, because the question did not say, how much did I give her? And somebody had a great idea. They said, maybe we should highlight what they're asking. So if I don't put it in bold for you, then maybe you should highlight what it's asking you. Because 15% is 675, and that's not how much I kept. So what do you need to do now to get your actual correct answer, James? Yes. You need to take that $45 that you made and subtract that $675. So how much did you keep? $38. Yes. And 25 cents. That is the correct answer. That's why that question on the last quiz we took was worth 2 points. You got 1 point if you set all this up and got this far, but you got that extra point if you really did what you were supposed to do. Okay, some people don't mind that option. Other people kind of like this one. So here's my thinking. Ready? If you are promising to give her 15%, how much percent are you keeping? Not money. How much percent are you keeping?
25.
No. Right? Watch, guys. This one is a little extra thought at the beginning. Do you agree that 85% is what your share is, and 15% was her share? So could you use the 15 to just figure out what your share is? And then when you get an answer, that's your answer. You don't have to worry about doing anything with it. So watch. 85% of 45 is what number? Okay? So watch this. 85% of my total, which is 45, is what number? Which is 0.85 of 45 is what number? And I shouldn't really even need to do this, because what should I expect to get? My cut of it. So 85% of 45 is 38.25. Got it? So let me just show you something. Either way, didn't you have to do some kind of fancy stuff like subtracting? I either had to find the 15% and subtract it from the total amount, or I just took subtract the percent and said, well, if she's getting 15, I'm getting 85. And then I'm done. I don't have to worry about, did I subtract it or not? Do you see what I'm talking about? So this is how I want you to approach problems, because now that you are aware of the fact that I could ask you either, you're going to see them more, right? So who's going to pass the test and, the detective test and go from there? So here's what I would like to give you today. Independent practice 3. We are still focused on our main goal is equations. However, do you think you could use a proportion to help you get to that equation? Yes. So for every one of these, actually, if you read, look, this is set up an equation for these. When you get to learning target 2, you can use a proportion to set this up. And learning target 1, so this is an estimate. This is a great one of all 3 learning targets that we've learned so far, right? So you have 4 where you literally just have to write the equation and solve it, and 2 word problems. And then you have your word problem down here for this. So does everybody understand what you're being asked to do?